that I think MMA is in a really interesting spot. Just I think when we look back at it in 20 years, and we'll be able to pinpoint like almost like how we are now, where like 20 years ago it was the way that it was, and we can kind of pick out things. But right now I think that the sport of MMA is in such a creative space where everyone's trying to like figure out the best system to winning right now, which is obviously super difficult because the judges' decisions are all over the place. But
Yeah.
I think MMA is really exciting right now because like in wrestling, there are like tried and true techniques that work over and over and over again. And they're like, people aren't doing crazy stuff. Barely, like not a lot of like judo throws are happening,
Right.
where I'm sure in the beginning pieces of wrestling, when people were trying to figure out what works best, they were having to experiment with a lot of that stuff over and over. And I think MMA is in a spot where we're still like experimenting with a ton of stuff. And I think that the person that's able to figure out the best system sooner than later is going to be the person that like,
Agree.
yeah, I mean,
It's
that's
so new.
Khabib. Exactly.
Yeah, 'cause
and
so
that's
Wouldn't you
Khabib.
say that's
Like, Khabib
wrestling?
has-
Wouldn't you say like Bo Nickel, for example, his wrestling is going to be such a problem for anybody if he grabs on.
But B, we've had guys of his caliber before.
We have.
Yes.
Yeah. So people figure that out.
But what makes Bo special is his transitioning. Obviously, his wrestling, he's going to out wrestle anybody, but there's guys who can navigate that wrestling. There are. He's going to meet some
Well,
guys.
look at Yoel Romero. He never really used his wrestling, which is so baffling. to me.
Yoel's a bad example because he's such high level, but there's going to be guys that don't have that collegiate background in wrestling, but they have a takedown defense that can nullify his wrestling. So then he's going to be forced to strike. But what makes Bo Nickel special is his transition, the way he can mix it up.
Yeah.
How he can go from wrestling to grappling right
Yeah,
away.
because there have been a lot of high-level wrestlers that petered out.
Well, because they can't put it together. They're either wrestling or they're striking. And you look at Bo, it's very fluid with only 4 or 5
GSP
fucking
had
fights.
that too, I think.
Similar,
Yeah.
but with Bo's background, is good. He's going to meet somebody where, probably 3 or 4 fights from now where, again, if it was a wrestling match, yeah, he's going to fucking annihilate them.
Right.
But they're going to be able to do enough inside that cage where they can nullify him, where he's going to be forced to strike.
Yeah. That's what I love about MMA.